Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a really fascinating journey into the hidden design philosophy that completely shaped the very first iPhone. When we think of smartphones today, we expect these sleek, flat, minimalist interfaces, right? But the operating system that started it all, it looked radically different. And the transition from that original look to the one we know and use today, well, it actually sparked an intense, behind-the-scenes civil war in one of the world's most secretive companies. Let's get right into the skeuomorphic roots of iOS. So, to really understand this story, we first got to wrap our heads around this slightly obscure academic term that became a massive driving force in early tech: skeuomorphism. Simply put, skeuomorphism refers to software features that intentionally mimic real-world physical objects. Now, I want you to cast your mind back to 2007. Try to remember your very first smartphone experience. Up until that point, phones had physical keyboards. The whole concept of typing on a flat piece of glass felt completely alien, cumbersome, and frankly, a little intimidating. Apple needed a way to make this brand new touch-based interface feel instantly familiar to us. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The skeuomorphic era. To understand exactly how Apple solved this whole problem of interacting with a piece of glass, we really need to look at the very early days of iOS. This was a time when digital interfaces desperately needed physical metaphors to guide the user. To make this incredibly complex mobile software approachable, Steve Jobs and his software chief, Scott Forstall, heavily championed these hyper-realistic physical metaphors. Think back to those early days. The Notes app didn't just have a yellow background, it looked like a literal legal pad, complete with the leather binder and authentic-looking digital stitching. The Game Center app featured this casino-style green felt that looked exactly like a poker table. And the bookshelves in the iBooks app featured these rich faux wood textures. You see, it wasn't just a stylistic choice, it was a psychological bridge. By making the digital world look exactly like the physical world, users instinctively knew how to interact with it. Which brings us to Section 2, the Design Civil War. And this brilliantly illustrates what happened next, because as users grew comfortable with tapping and swiping on glass, that exact texture-heavy design philosophy began to cause a massive rift. A really intense internal conflict was brewing at Apple. On one side of this conflict, you had the old guard leadership, Steve Jobs and Scott Forstall. They were the architects of this interface, and they absolutely loved the reflections, the drop shadows, the leather stitching, the whole shebang. But on the other side, you had Jonathan Ive, Apple's legendary head of industrial design. Now, Johnny Ive advocated for a totally different approach. He strongly favored minimalism and simplicity. He wanted a cleaner, flatter software aesthetic that actually matched the sleek physical hardware he was designing. The tension this design civil war caused among Apple's executive team was literally extreme. We're not talking about a polite disagreement over color palettes here. It got to the point where Jonathan Ive allegedly refused to even attend meetings in the same room as Scott Forstall unless CEO Tim Cook was present to mediate. The company was essentially split right down the middle between the hardware team's minimalist vision and the software team's skeuomorphic legacy. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we get to Section 3, the Apple Maps disaster. Because a completely unrelated software feature actually ended up bringing this simmering design war to a dramatic, explosive climax. In September 2012, Apple released iOS 6. Up until this point, Apple had used Google Maps. But with iOS 6, they launched their own native Maps app led by Scott Forstall. And guys, the launch was an absolute disaster. The app was just riddled with highly publicized errors that made it an internet laughingstock almost overnight. There were buggy melting satellite images. The capital city of Ukraine, Kyiv, was misspelled as Kylv. The Welsh town of Pontypridd was shown 6 miles northeast of its actual location. And get this, if you searched for London, the app directed you to London, Ontario, Canada, instead of, the capital of the United Kingdom. The public backlash was so fierce that just 9 days after the release, CEO Tim Cook had to publish a highly unusual public apology letter. And in that letter, he actually said this: "While we're improving Maps, you can try alternatives by downloading map apps from the App Store, like Bing, MapQuest, and Waze." Take a second to think about how shocking that is. The CEO of Apple actually gave his loyal customers explicit instructions to go and use competitor services. Absolutely wild. And this mapped out a very rapid downfall. You see, Scott Forstall, who led the development of Apple Maps, reportedly believed the user complaints were totally overblown. He held this belief so strongly that he outright refused to sign Tim Cook's apology letter. Well, for the Apple executive team, this was the final straw. Exactly 1 month after the Maps launch on October 29, 2012, Scott Forstall's departure from the company was officially announced.
So with Forstall gone, Tim Cook handed Jonathan Ive total unified control of both hardware and software design. The design civil war was over.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 4, the flat design revolution.
With Johnny Ive now firmly at the helm of software, the stage was totally set for a massive paradigm shift. In 2013, Apple unveiled iOS 7, and it was the most dramatic change to the iPhone's operating system since the original release back in 2007. Johnny Ive just abruptly stripped away all the reflections, all the drop shadows, and all those real-world textures of the past. The skeuomorphic era was completely wiped clean. And Apple knew exactly what they were doing. They even poked fun at their own history. During the iOS 7 reveal presentation, Apple executive Craig Federaghi delivered this pretty humorous quote to roaring applause. He said, "We just completely ran out of green felts and wood as well. This has got to be good for the environment." It was a really lighthearted moment, but it signaled the official, celebrated death of skeuomorphism at Apple. This new interface completely replaced the physical metaphors of the past. It introduced a beautifully clean, minimal design with a decidedly flatter aesthetic. By removing all those heavy physical textures, the software instantly felt lighter, faster, and way more focused on efficiency rather than just mimicking reality. This really cemented Jonathan Ive's vision and created the sleek, modern foundation for the mobile software that we all use to this very day. So, the crucial point is Section 5, the legacy of iOS 7. Because what did this massive visual overhaul actually leave behind? How did the users react to having their familiar leather and wood suddenly ripped away? Well, initially, this massive shift wasn't universally loved. There was a very vocal segment of the tech community that hated the new interface, feeling super nostalgic for the remnants of the Steve Jobs era. Some literally refused to upgrade. But the data tells a totally different story. Despite all that vocal resistance, almost 90% of all iOS users had upgraded to iOS 7 in just 9 months. It proved unequivocally that moving past skeuomorphism was for sure the right direction for the platform. You see, stripping back the interface didn't just modernize the look, it created a clean canvas for advanced future features. The flat design of 2013 paved the way for things that would have felt impossibly cluttered in a skeuomorphic system. For instance, by 2018, iOS 12 was introducing augmented reality with the Measure app, blending digital lines seamlessly into the real world. By 2020, iOS 14 was bringing data-rich widgets directly to the home screen. The software no longer needed to pretend to be a physical object because with technologies like AR, it was beginning to directly interact with our actual physical environment. Which leaves us with this final, truly fascinating question to ponder. We know skeuomorphism was originally used to teach us how to interact with a digital screen. Now, as our interfaces evolve past flat glass and step out into the real world through augmented reality and spatial computing, will we need physical metaphors again to teach us how to interact with digital objects floating in our living rooms? Could the casino green felt and leather stitching in some entirely new 3D form actually make a comeback? It's an incredible thought. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer on the design civil war of iOS, and I really hope this leaves you looking at your smartphone screen in a whole new light.